broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Houston, Texas. It's time for Houston Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, Houston. Trisha Stetzel here, bringing you another episode of Houston Business Radio. It is my pleasure to introduce you to my guest today, Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer, a USA Today bestselling author, international speaker, and executive coach with more than 30 years of C-suite experience helping leaders and organizations unlock human potential. She's the founder and CEO of Benson Performance Partners, creator of Human Capital Investment Strategy. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. The Now, Near, Next Career Framework, and the 7-Minute Pivot, a powerful daily practice that helps professionals move from stuck to strategic. Cynthia works at the intersection of strategy and soul, helping leaders reclaim purpose, elevate performance, and intentionally shape the careers and cultures they want. Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Trisha, it's so exciting to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you on. So tell us just a little bit more about Dr. Cynthia.
Oh, yes. Well, you summed it up nicely in that lovely introduction. I would say, in addition to that, I have 2 grown children, 3 grandchildren, and a 4th grandchild on the way. So, in rounding out that which is all things Cynthia, there's the part of me that is also a mom and a CC, and those are some of the most important jobs that I have.
I love that. I always love to know what we want the grandchildren to call us. So
Right.
CC is right in the top 5 that I've heard. I love that. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love to dive right in. In your introduction, I talked a little bit about strategy and soul. So what does it mean for leaders who feel misaligned or even burned out when you talk about strategy and soul?
Yeah, in studying leaders, and I've done the most of the study I've done is women leaders, but this absolutely generalizes to men as well, is that we can have a vision for our career, our future, what it is that we want to do. But sometimes there's a disconnect or misalignment to the point of your question. Does it really align with my sense of purpose? Does it really align with my core value system? And I find that when I'm coaching women and men, they think they know their own personal mission, vision, and values. But until they put pen to paper, they don't actually know. They think that they sort of have this intuition around it. It's an exercise. And those become your non-negotiables. So then you can bump up career transitions, progressions, et cetera, against how does this fit in with my sense of purpose, my sense of values, my mission. And those can evolve and change, right, as we grow and mature and have different experiences. But it gives us our true north. And to me, it's always a both and proposition.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So when we think about potential and permission, especially with women, where do you see the biggest gap in the way our minds work when it comes to potential and permission?
It's such an important question. What we know from data and evidence from the studies that we did with my thought partner as part of my first book, Now, Near, Next, and many other studies that preceded our work, is that statistically, women, 1, tend to wait to be invited. 2, expect that this myth of put your head down, work hard, and wait to get tapped is the right path, versus leaning into our potential. Right. And again, and there's, of course, the study around women see 10 requirements for a job and feel that they have to tick all 10 boxes. Men tick 3 of the boxes and they're like, hey, fake it till you make it. By the way, not an indictment of the man listening. In fact, my advice always is we need to steal a page out of our incredible male counterparts playbook, because it's not about waiting for permission. It's about self-advocating. It's about not leaving your agency in the hands of or lap of someone else. And it's leaning into the possibilities and your potential not necessarily the confidence that you've accomplished everything. And that's a leap for a lot of people, women and people of color in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's as you're talking through that, I'm even thinking about, Cynthia, the idea of the people we surround ourselves with. So how important is it that we allow the right people in our room?
Yeah, well, hugely important. What's the phrase? If you you'll never soar with the eagles if you hang out with turkeys or something like
Yeah.
that. I used to tell my kids that. It's a couple of things. We actually cover this in Now Near Next about there's people that give you energy. There's people that maybe are pretty neutral. And then there's those that suck energy, right? So who you surround yourself has lots of layers. Number one is surround yourself with people that are pouring into you, right? And it's not a one-way street. You're pouring into them as well. But with positivity and affirmation, not people that are sucking the life out of the room. Now, sometimes those are relatives or people we have to spend some time with. And that's a different conversation, but that's when boundaries become important. I think the other thing is sponsorship and allyship and advocacy don't always just happen organically. It happens when we, again, use our agency to seek people out that can say our name in rooms that we're not in. But people are not mind readers. Trisha, if I have an aspiration to do something really amazing and don't tell anybody, no one's going to know that. But if I happen to tell you, like, hey, I'd like to do something that I've seen you do someday, and I'd love to get your advice. 2 months from now, you may be in a room where somebody's looking for that exact competency. And you're like, you know what? I just talked to a gal that's looking for that exact thing. Let's line that up. So surround yourself with people that give you positive energy and that are going to say your name in rooms you're not in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so important. Thank you for bringing that out. That a lot of us who advocate for each other out listening for not only opportunities for ourselves, but for those that are closest to us and that we spend time with. It's so important. Let's talk just for a minute about Now Near Next. I know people have heard you say it a couple of times in our conversation already. So tell us a little more.
Yeah. So Now Near Next, my first book with co-author Kimberly Rath came out in March of 24. And it was really dedicated for women, high professional, high achieving, ambitious, overextended women. And in a nutshell, the through line is start working on your future today. Do your day job with excellence, but identify your next, whatever that is for you, and start working on it today. And it doesn't have to be massive steps. It can be tiny incremental shifts or pivots to get you moving there. The brief backstory is when I set out to write this book, I was in a CAO position in a large organization. This was kind of something I was doing in the margins. In researching and studying women around the globe, learned that to a person, these high functioning, ambitious, very successful women, not one of them was intentional in their career journey. And so many women aren't and don't have the luck, serendipity, right place, right time that the women we studied had. And so it became so clear to me that you have to start working on your next right now, not after the kids go off to school or graduate or the significant other gets their perfect job. And it saved the day for me when my position was eliminated 2.5 years ago during a CEO change of control. Had it not been for the research I had done and drinking my own champagne, I started journeying with the reader and building what was to be my next, I thought 3 to 5 years from now. When my job was eliminated, I was like, okay, well, I can either go find another C-suite job, which sounds exhausting as a single woman, empty nester, or I can accelerate this plan that I'd already been working toward. I would have never had that option had I not been following this framework of in the now, identify your next.
I love that. And I love that drink your own champagne. I've never heard that before. I'm just going to say Cynthia coined that.
Fair enough.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. So is now a good time to talk a little bit about the 7-minute pivot?
Yeah, it's a perfect segue because here's what we learned from, and again, for the man listening, let me just say this. If you have a sister, a wife, a girlfriend, a mom, a daughter, a female coworker, please don't tune this part out. This is for you as well. And all of the concepts of now, near, next work equally well for men. It just happens that they tend to be better at it naturally. Right? So they absolutely work, but they just tend to lean into their agency more than women. The very first thing we heard is when we talked to women and we were on stages promoting the book and talking about the research is they'd say, listen, Cynthia, I love it. It makes all the sense in the world. I don't have time. Right? I don't have time because whether you have children or you don't have children, we pour into someone, our church, our community, we're sandwich generation, we're caring for aging parents, our community, somebody, we're leaning into. And so where the 7-minute pivot evolved is this: everyone has 7 minutes a day. It's more than 5, it's less than 10. And when you take 7 minutes and remove all distractions, put a timer on so that it's limited to the 7 minutes, put a timer on, get out a piece of paper and a pen, because we know neurologically this really connects with that frontal lobe and starts to get us thinking in that creative headspace and creates clarity and focus. And ask yourself a prompt: what is standing in the way of my next? That could be the prompt. And for that 7 minutes, you're journaling about that. But here's the thing: you ask yourself a why 3 times, because most of us will go, I don't have time. Okay, end of 7 minutes. I still have 6 minutes and 55 seconds left, right? Why? Well, because of this, and this. Why? And so you get underneath the thing that's underneath the thing. And then the beauty in the 7-minute pivot is at the end, you choose one small incremental thing, just one baby step to move you slightly forward. So you don't have to make massive changes, but you're saying, I'm going to make that phone call. I'm going to update my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to set this new boundary. Whatever that one small thing is, you do that every day for a year. That's 2,555 minutes. Imagine how far off course a plane would go with just that tiny incremental shift over time. It ends up 300 miles in a different direction altogether. That's what can happen for us in the steps that we can absorb for those of us that are overextended, busy, doing life.
Yeah, life. I'm thinking about my calendar right now, Cynthia. I think I can find 7 minutes. I'm just saying, I think I can.
Yeah,
I love that.
I know.
What a wonderful piece of advice, especially for those very busy professionals out there. It just takes 7 minutes to start that direction. And we see how that played out with you. So thank you for sharing that story. That's so important, I think, for people who are listening today. I know that folks are already ready to connect with you to find out more. What is the best way for folks to reach out or to connect with you, Cynthia?
Yeah. So all the socials, I'm Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer, which is a unique spelling. And so I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. My website is easier. It's dr-cynthia.com. And you can connect with me there for a free coaching session. You can look up books, and I have a lot of free resources for the person listening that wants to audit how they're doing on their own intentionality. There's a free audit quiz for the gentleman that's listening that says, how can I be a better ally? There's an allyship quiz. So lots of free resources available, and I'd love to connect.
I love that. Thank you so much, Cynthia. And by the way, her first name is spelled Cynthia, just in case you're looking for that website. And of course, it'll be in the show notes. So you can point and click if you happen to be sitting right in front of your computer, not driving.
That's right.
Yes. Why don't we, since we're on the topic of high achieving leaders and people who are busy professionals and love to pour into others, what predictable patterns do you see when high achieving leaders feel restless or even stuck?
Yeah, so it's a couple of different things. Again, there are some interesting dynamics from a gender perspective. Um, Men, for the most part, tend to speak up. Put me in, coach. Is there something else? I really want this. This is this is the path I'm looking for. This is the next promotion I'd like to see, which I love. I love that, that they're putting their agency for the most part into the universe. Women tend to grow silently restless, frustrated, stuck, or stagnant, and begin their search and take their ball and go elsewhere. And here's why. And this is something leaders need to be very much aware of. We long have thought if there's a new position that opens up or a promotion, what have you, that if a person doesn't raise their hand, that, well, they're just not very ambitious. Not necessarily the case. Women over index on performance. We have been conditioned for the most part to put our heads down, work hard, and wait to get tapped. We expect that our performance and our work speaks for itself. So when the new position comes up, I'm expecting Trisha to come say, hey, Cynthia, you've been working really hard and done all these amazing things. There's this position. Trisha's expecting Cynthia's going to raise her hand and say, hey, what about me? And so we miss opportunities, right? Which is why then we sort of silently take our ball and go elsewhere. So I think the cautionary tale is twofold. Number one, all people should put their agency and their aspirations into the universe and be responsible for their own agency. Number one. Number two, as leaders of people, ask those questions. What are your aspirational goals? What's your aspirational next? How can I help get you there? What barriers do you see are standing in your way? Worst thing that could happen is somebody has a desire for something that you don't see being a good fit. Podcast for another day, but there's ways to address that and help align them better to their natural gifts and talents. The worst thing you can do is not raise the question, not show a sense of investment, and then lose that talent to the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those are some great pieces of advice where we need to step forward and say, these are the things that I'm interested in. And as managers or leaders, we need to ask, what is it that you want to do next? So those are what I would consider things that are out there in the universe. What about what's in between our ears? There's a whole lot of mindset work, I think, that comes behind what we're talking about today. So how do we shift the way we're thinking or the way that we've always thought into these other spaces where we're actually standing up and saying, hey, me?
Yeah. Well, so much of it is what I refer to more as imposter phenomenon, right? I've decided I don't believe it's a syndrome. I don't think it's a clinical diagnosis, and I think it's something that we can all overcome. I think it's a phenomenon that many of us have. I am still, not someone that has overcome all areas of the phenomenon as it creeps in from time to time. So this is another excellent use of the 7-minute pivot, and it is using it for purposes of your highlight reel. So you don't put down in 7 minutes. Your prompt is not, what are all the reasons I don't think that I can do X? What are all the reasons that it is, what are all of the times when I have demonstrated getting through hard stuff, right? So you kind of do a highlight reel and get yourself in the place of, I'm worthy, I'm capable. Look at all the times I've done hard things well and succeeded. And what's one small thing I can do today to continue to move forward in that positive direction? The other thing, and highlight reels, I think, work great. I think you can do those at the end of a day. When you've had that day where you're like, oh, that one thing didn't go well. If you're like me, you beat yourself up about, you can have 20 things go well, but that one thing that didn't go well, it's like all night long, I am replaying the fact that I called somebody by the wrong name or whatever it was, which really happened with a client. And it was, I stewed over it. But the reality is it's to flip that thinking to, what are all of the things I can be proud of that I've done successfully, and put your energy and motion into that. And how do I keep that momentum? So Yeah, there's so much about our own self-limiting beliefs, and moving past that, I think oftentimes has to do with just reminding ourselves of how incredibly brilliant we really are.
Yeah, and I think as women, we beat ourselves up a lot over the small things, and you know what? The reality is, we're all human, and things happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to embrace grace, right? At
Mhm.
the end of the day, you have to embrace grace
Yeah.
and over guilt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And surround yourself with the right people, as you mentioned, have the right
that's right.
people in the room that support you when you find yourself in that spot, right?
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Okay. I'd love to shift to something new if that's okay with
Yes.
you. I've heard that you might be dropping a new book called Capital Investment Strategy. Can we talk about that?
Yes, yes, yes. So human capital investment strategy, and here's how it links to the first part of the conversation. When I was writing and then promoting Now Near Next, one of the things I always would start with is, look, this is not a finger wagging at men. This is, not about society, culture, et cetera. Let's just agree that there are things that hold women back, that are systemic, that are somewhat out of our control. Now Near Next is about what we can control. What kept bugging me, having spent over 30 years in human resources, was, but there are things organizationally that are not only impacting individuals, but they're impacting organizations in a negative way. And it's this: we use very arbitrary criteria for selection and promotion that date back to the Industrial Revolution, that are not predictive of future performance. Age, years of experience, job titles, even schools, what kind of pedigree somebody has. When we use all of these non-predictive, right? Non-predictive measures of trying to figure out what future performance will look like, we narrow the pool, to respectfully what often ends up being middle-aged white men, because we say you have to have 15 years of experience at this job level in this industry in this type of company, et cetera, right? And we're shrinking it down. What human capital investment strategy, the through line is this: invest in your human capital, both as an individual. My human capital is mine to invest in, my talent, my skill, my knowledge. And as leaders and organizations, invest in the portfolio of human capital that chooses to come bring their gifts and talents to work every day, with the same rigor and intentionality that you're investing in your financial capital.
Mm.
And in doing so, find more predictive measures, build around talent, teach skill and knowledge. That is the true competitive advantage. And then what we will see is this melting pot of a portfolio of the highest performers, doing their best work that they love doing because it's their gift and they're wired to do it, and organizations thriving. I scratch my head sometimes because in some ways it seems so blindingly obvious. And yet organization after organization continue to fall back into what I frankly find is a really lazy way of bringing people into their company, and how they manage people instead of the human capital.
Yeah, absolutely. Human capital investment strategy is dropping on February 3rd.
Right.
Where might the listeners find this beautiful new piece of work of yours?
Yes. So I'd love for you to buy it, pick it up in pre-order and pre-sale. You can do one of two things. You can go to Amazon. It's available for pre-sale right now on Amazon. If you go to Amazon and then you want to email me at hello@cynthiabentzen-mercer.com, which again will be in the show notes, and just say purchased on Amazon, I'm going to email you $728 in free content to hold you over for the few weeks until you have the book in hand. Or you can go to my website at dr-cynthia.com, and you can order the book right there, and you will automatically receive $728 in free content to hold you over until the book arrives in your hands.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Cynthia. This has been so fun. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So, for those listeners listening today who have this thing inside of them that they know that there's something more for them out there, but they're not sure where to begin. what's their very first step? What should they do?
The very first step, I'm going to give you a framework. I'll go through it swiftly. It's ACEs. So that's how you remember it. If you're driving, remember ACEs. We all have ACEs and spaces. So think about when you finish a day or a week and you reflect and you're like, gosh, that was an amazing day. That was such a good day at quote unquote work or whatever it was you were doing. So the way you find your natural talent is it's affirming. It feels good when I'm doing it. We can all do lots of things we don't love doing, but it feels good. I love hosting a podcast. It's fun to do. That's affirming, right? It's consistent. It's always something you do and you do it well. It's spontaneous. Actually, I think the E comes next. You do it with excellence, meaning you do it better than most. It comes easy for you. And it isn't because you took a lot of classes or went to school for it. It's just sort of part of your DNA and it's spontaneous. You can't help yourself. You're the person that walks into a busy room and thinks, you know, if they put a stanchion there and added a person there, this whole thing would be so much more organized, right? Versus the person that walks in and just becomes part of the chaos. So when you think about that, when you think about what are my ACEs, what are the things that feel so affirming consistently, I do with excellence and I do spontaneously, start to mind map that, start to journal about that. And then how do you monetize that? That becomes how you start to isolate your next. Then start working on your future today. You don't have to quit your job and go do that, you know, become a writer or a, you know, movie star tomorrow. You start working on your future today, baby steps.
I love that. ACEs, ACEs, ACEs. Everyone who's listening, remember ACEs, and you can always come back and grab the show notes for what the acronym stood for. Cynthia, this has been so much fun today. I really appreciate your time. You have given us so much gold. I don't know how I can ever repay you.
Oh, you are so kind. And my little uninvited guest is in the background barking. So hopefully you don't hear that. It has been amazing. Thank you for this time. You are such a wonderful host and interviewer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cynthia. It's been my pleasure to have you. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for today. If you found value in this conversation that Cynthia and I had, please share it with a fellow entrepreneur, a veteran, or a Houston leader ready to grow. And be sure to follow, rate, and review the show. Of course, it helps us reach more bold business minds just like yours. And your business, your leadership, and your legacy are built one intentional step at a time. So stay inspired, stay focused, and keep building the business and the life you deserve.